My button's just here we go.
We are live. Hello.
Yay!
All right.
What are we doing here?
I was angry.
Oh, Hannah was angry.
Hannah was pissed, and then this happened. So, hey everyone.
We're doing what the Manosphere do, and we're processing our emotions and processing our anger into a podcast.
Right. Exactly
Like
that.
it.
Right. Constructive. We're being constructive. That is what we're doing. So Garry, do you want to introduce it? We are so impromptu, by the way, everyone. Just so
Always impromptu.
Impromptu, just here. Garry, do you want to introduce it?
I guess so. So we were having a bit of a natter after a certain Louis Theroux into the Manosphere, among many other things that we discussed earlier today. But we just felt moved to come on and just with our very different perspectives, backgrounds, and just go, what the fuck? Like, actually, how the hell is this stuff being monetized in 2026? Not even monetized. Violence against women and girls being sold as a business opportunity, and I'm like, what the fuck? So I think that's why I wanted to come in here to go like, what the fuck, really?
Collective what the fucking right here, right now. Join in.
But more importantly, who are both of you? Why don't you introduce yourself?
Chloe, you go first.
I'm not sure how to introduce myself anymore, to be honest. I'm Chloe, and I'm known online most for being a Jewish person against genocide and a Jewish person for. Before that, I was a medical student, and we were talking earlier about I've had experience of harassment online and offline since then. So I'm currently writing across GitHub, Substack, and LinkedIn.
Follow Chloe, by the way, everyone, if you don't. Is it my turn now? I think people know me, and if you don't, like, who am I? I'm Hannah. Shout a lot, get angry a lot, but I'm actually quite a nice person. I'm going to add that in today. So I guess my context for us being here is that when we've been talking about violence against women and children and women and girls for a long time, but I just thought it was really important to stop making it statistics, stop making it, but also then watching that Manoverse thing, joining up the dots. So I do work around imagining something else outside of this system. So Garry and Chloe have been a huge part of my journey, and they have both watched the mental crumbling in real time and been my sounding boards to process the absolute fuckery of the last few years. So thank you to you two for being here. So that's kind of how it started, right? I was ranting to Garry, and then we were talking about the show, and then Chloe came into the mix. I was like, Chloe. So anyway, this is just a continuation. So hi, everyone.
And what the hell am I doing here? Good point.
You were the only one that could set up the live stream, remember?
It's not worked completely brilliantly, to be honest, because Substack's not chatting directly with StreamYard. But hey, that's IT world. Yeah, so I'm here because I really care about this agenda, actually, and having a chat with you two earlier on today, and just see the Louis Theroux thing was shocking on a few levels when I watched it last weekend with my wife. One, how much it centered the men's perspective while they made money off of abusing women. Okay, that's odd. And the other thing was just, oh my God, like our kids and grandkids, like this is what they're being pushed online as like a business opportunity. Like, what the fuck? So I just think it's just.
Were you shocked, Chloe? Yeah. Garry's coming with all this shock. Were you shocked, Chloe?
I've seen the Manosphere, like the specific episode of it. So I'm coming from a perspective of having watched this and observed this from a more of a research perspective, because it's having such a big impact on the online space, the nerdy space that I live in online, but also on how, when I was working in healthcare, more how you engage with young men now. And it is such a big part of how boys and young men view women. I think even just in some of my interactions with men, you could see how they might not have been exposed to the manosphere itself, but they've seen things that come out of that. And it's really kind of changed the way that men are, or that the kind of cultural soup that we're all floating in. So So I'm not sure if I'm surprised or shocked anymore, but it's just, yeah, it's disappointing, but it's not shocking.
Sorry, Garry, I totally interrupted you as well. Sorry, my bad.
You didn't interrupt me at all. No, it's like I say, it's not that I wasn't aware it's happening, but the bit of shock for me was the monetization piece of that whole agenda. And like, give us donate $35 and you can swear at one of the women on the screen or tell them they look shit or whatever. Like, it was just that degradation and dehumanization. Like, you could basically buy dehumanization in the moment, like, because someone's got such low self-worth in themselves, or they think their whole world internally is so bad, they have to pay $35 to project it outwards. And I think that for me was a real, like, that was the shocking bit. It wasn't the shocking bit around what's actually happening. It was really watching in real time that, like, the low self-worth meets hyper capitalism and going like, fucking hell, that's ugly.
I was more pissed at the fact that I've been spent like 3 years trying to like channel my anger, when actually I could have been a fucking millionaire by now if I just was like angry and hateful. Like, what shit, like, stupid.
I guess
me.
that's something to bear in mind as well, isn't it? Is that we see a lot of men behave like this online anyway. So there's obviously sometimes men feel like they can say it with their whole chest. I don't know if you've seen the kind of backlash to that online where people have tracked people down in their workplaces. I'm not saying you should do it. I'm saying that it's interesting to watch that dynamic play out.
100%.
Have you seen that at all?
Yeah. If it, I mean, I've done it. I've been like, hello workplace in a post, but ultimately nothing really actually happened.
Really. Yeah, sort of like consequences free, isn't it?
Yeah. Of
and
course.
Garry, you were saying earlier, it's basically like you get rewarded for it. You behave like that.
And I guess it's really interesting, though, isn't it? Like as you say that, I was just like, yeah, but of course. Why would you not? Because capitalism, in its current state, those with power get rewarded for being absolute dicks. You can lay people off, you can trample over them, you can send them halfway around the world with very little support if you want to, and that's okay. Like the business model of neoliberal capitalism, which is collapsing in real time, is literally this, right? There's just so many fractals of, I own you, I can treat you how I want to because you're my possession. Like, there's just something, it's just...
But I said this to you this morning, Garry, they've never lied to us. Let's be honest, like, the system has never lied to us. We have consented. No. We haven't read terms and conditions on our Apple upgrade, whatever it is, we've consented to it because we've been bombarded with information. So they've never really lied to us. So at what point are we going to say, like, fuck this, is enough? Because we talk about it, but these are very, very real life human lives that are being impacted by this, like, every day.
So I hold a question then, like, thinking, not just when I've been all solution orientated, but like, what's the gap? So if we've been sold this directly, we're signing up to it willingly, inverted commas, and it's not changing. Like, what's the gap? What do we need to put in place as, like, transformational models, or, I mean, like, spaces? Like, what are the things that are going to transform or move us from where we are to where healthy is?
Because you can't ask anyone to leave what they know and what's comfortable if you're not giving them somewhere else to go. Ultimately, as human beings, whether we like it or not, we've been programmed to look for community. So when these boys are going into the manosphere, ultimately, what are they looking for? Community. When kids join gangs, they're looking for community. Now, whether they find healthy community or not, that's down to us. That's our generation's responsibility to make sure that there is healthy out there. Because at the moment, what are we choosing between? What are we choosing between where actually, as women, we have pretty much just accepted we're in a femicide? Like, what the fuck is that? Like, children, like, how much more do we have to see people before something ignites and goes, hold on a minute, that could be my child? Like, if we're not protecting the most vulnerable human beings or people on this planet, which are children, like, we may as well just all call it a day because we've lost. Like, what the fuck? Like, it makes zero sense to me that we are in a system and the disparity is so vast between the people that are doing good and the people that are just like demon energy. What is that? And we are the bridge. Me, you, Chloe, anyone watches, we're the ones that bridge the gap. We are the gap. It's whether we decide to stand up and do something.
Meeting that as well. There's this really interesting question that gets asked a lot in the last 10 or 20 years of looking between philosophy and politics and what's happening with capitalism. Essentially asking, do we even know what even things like desire would look like beyond capitalism? So to what extent does capitalism control us? I mean, really, if you want to take it back, it's like about 50 years of like things like the cybergenics movement came out of that. There was a lot of work by Mark Fisher and like people around him of, even if capitalism went tomorrow, would we know what to do? Would we know what we desired? Would our desires still be run off capitalism? So quite often when you say things like, okay, well, children are being harmed, a lot of the time people are not uncomfortable enough versus their absolute, like almost addictive desire to have more stuff, to the point where they're like, okay, I need to do something now.
Yep.
And our question is like, how much of that is actually like you as a person, and how much of that is you watching 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, 60 years of adverts, product placement, having a job that exhausts you to the point where you can't think straight, having basically no options in front of you. Like, it's that lack of imagination, I think, for me, is a really big piece.
I don't think it's lack. I think it's specific bombardment of, let's call it programming, to suppress that. It's still there. It's still there. But it has been suppressed, and we are bombarded with so much information that we've forgotten. I'm not even going to say we need to find it. We've forgotten who we are outside the system. But people are remembering now. People are remembering. And then what we're seeing is things like the toxic algorithm, the toxic manosphere, which isn't just what we saw on that TV program, by the way. The manosphere is fucking huge, and all of you men are a part of it, whether you like it or not, even you good ones. So what we have to do is really kind of start to, I forgot what I was saying. Sorry, I got in my rant. But what did you say? Sorry, you said something that was really like,
talk about desire in advertising. So you're
yes, so there are
like,
people,
suppress it.
but we can only trigger each other's memories by it being in collective community. And I've done that with both of you. I've done it with both of you.
It's having like that safety as well. So we were talking earlier about the idea of you need somewhere to like land safely. And this is a conversation I've had with other people as well, particularly around whiteness. And so I'm Jewish, but other people I've spoken to are white Christians, where we're looking at, okay, if you're coming out of a place of unlearning Zionism, what does your off-ramp look like? And where does your safe community look like? Because that's actually the dominant, like, coming into a place of, okay, well, where do I go now? Sometimes you just don't know where your home is. So sometimes creating that kind of off-ramp for people, you can see when people come out of the fight, when people come out of even things like cults and high control groups. You can see it with MAGA recently as well, where Americans are coming out of that and kind of being a bit of what the young people call a crash out online. These people don't really have a place to go because they've lost their community element.
I think men found it, and this is going to sound really weird, but men were more open, because I've created those spaces, Chloe, and do they want to jump into it? No, because they don't feel safe around each other. So I've actually found that white men especially were more comfortable with addressing racism and white privilege than I've seen in the patriarchy. There's more, because they will have to come together with other men to do that.
Yeah. I think there's this idea as well that, like, surely we've all done it. We've completed feminism, right? Women have had the vote for nearly 100 years. And I think even as women, we don't really accept that there's still a lot of sexism. There's still a lot of misogyny in systems.
And I don't want to work.
Still having conversations about like maternity leave is still a conversation we're having.
I don't want to work. Like, it was the biggest farce ever. Like, nobody wants to work, right? You know, and like, women, you can work now. Whose bright idea was that? Right? None of us want to go and work for a system that exhausts us, that we have to ask permission when we can go to the toilet. Do you know, like, nobody wants to like go to work sick. Nobody wants to work in this system. Even if you think you do, you don't, I can assure you.
But the reality is, work, as we currently understand it, is just an extension of the enclosure movement, right? That's the reality. It's just literally trading time for money. But when But at the end of the day, again, a little bit back to Chloe's point about that off ramp. If I ask men, and I had to ask myself this a lot, who are we? Like if you ask most men, who are you without your job, they do not have an answer. And that is a fundamental issue with everything we're talking about here. We're looking at viewing women, reducing violence. Like if you've got a bunch of men with power who don't literally understand who they are beyond their job, like that's problematic. And that's why I've tried to find like space. I've not had spaces, right? The truth is, I didn't have space growing up being bullied as a kid. I had a home life, that wonderful parents, but it wasn't a space to say, I need help. Let me put my hand up. So for 2.5 decades, I'm walking around as a suppressed emotional being, on the outside looking great, on the inside completely in pieces, because I didn't know where to go. You know, men don't have spaces to go. And that's part of my accountability, is to try, you know, with Hannah, with Chloe, with all of it. But how do we co-create those spaces of safety? Not comfort, safety. Two very different things. And I think, you know, and it's not just, men's groups are great. No, they are really, really good and they serve a purpose, but it's not doing this work. It's not doing this deep, like this is how everything's joined up, this is how harm gets caused type work. And I don't, if I'm honest, I don't fully know how to get people into it.
I want to ask you a question, Garry, and I've asked you it before and I already know the answer, but I just want to ask you again. So when we talk about this, there's a real fear. So everything, I believe that where we're at now is embedded in fear. I know I've had to kind of release a lot of my fear, but what is the fear? So there's two questions here, and I've already asked you these, but what if someone does the work, right? What is the world doesn't change until we all change, right? But Garry, you've done the work, you've done the decolonial work, you've done the work around like patriarchy. I'm not saying it's finished by any means, but what did you lose, like materially? Like, did you suddenly do the work and then did your house just disappear from like, oh my God, Garry, you've done the work, your house goes now? The society will still afford you the same privileges. So what are people, so what are they scared of? Like, I don't understand. And we've been doing the work for a while, and I've done it with you, Chloe, in other ways, but it doesn't have to be painful. Like, what is it? What is the fear?
So I will speak from my own experience. When I asked for that help on the decolonisation journey, I didn't know I needed it. But fundamentally, what I was asking for was somebody to be in my corner so I could navigate discomfort, which I'm not used to feeling. Right? That's a massive thing for men. We're not used to feeling below the neck. We're not allowed to. Right? That's a massive part of this. And then the other part for me is literally around curiosity. You know, it's this, like we spoke about on the podcast, right, Hannah? Fundamentally, healthy masculine, healthy feminine in unison, everyone's good. Like, you know, we can move towards that future that Chloe was gesturing towards. Like, if we're coming from a healthy balance of drive, build, want to make stuff, you know, creating, brilliant, healthy masculine, and listening, care, love, like looking after one, like we can be both those things. And we're still in that massively atomized view, particularly in men. Because I'm just literally surrounded by men who are literally got their self-worth wrapped up in their job, in the next pay rise, in the holiday, getting a bigger car, getting a bigger house. And I tell you why, because I was there. Until a decade ago, I was doing exactly the same chase.
But so was I. This is what I'm trying to understand. Like, so obviously I've had
feeling is the gap.
Right.
Feeling, the ability to feel is the single biggest gap, I believe.
Interesting. Because when you just said introduce yourself, I always really struggle because now I don't want to introduce myself by my job title, but also I'm quite a complex individual. So one sentence or like 1 minute isn't enough. And how are we going to make snap judgments? Because I'm fucking amazing. I'm really funny as well, Garry, I'll tell you. And Chloe. But to summarize who we are and our purpose and our existence in like a sentence that's not a job title is actually quite hard. So who are any of us is the question, but who's willing to lean into it and who's not, I think, is the question.
This is another question about polarization as well, isn't it? It's like, how do you even define yourself in the first place? And I think you kind of see people are already, you get this like elite capture of the idea of identity politics, and people are almost like quite tired of what they've seen that turn into. It becomes even difficult to sort of say, well, how do you summarize who you are? You know, like, what do you share with people? What do you not share with people? But maybe that's just a conversation about vulnerability as well. Is, you know, what are even the boundaries going to look like? Because I think that's an interesting conversation out of the manosphere, is that we see it particularly with men, but it affects all of us, is what do boundaries look like? What's okay in terms of control and persuasion? What's not okay? Where, if we talk about consent, if we remove the sex element and just talk about consent as a process, and we always get into this whenever we talk about, you know, like personal social health education for kids, actually it should be okay to tell 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds that certain things are not okay, and it's okay to say no to certain people in certain situations. And then we all get into a very big argument about it. But that's a really interesting conversation in our society anyway, is what is it okay for other people to do to you? Where should the boundaries be? What's okay? What's not okay? What's really below the belt?
But
But then you have to have that conversation about vulnerability as well.
It's also, I think, a level of like maybe like dehumanization that happens too, because I feel really strongly about children. Like, if a child doesn't want to come to you, don't force that child. Like, a child's allowed to have a bad day. A child is still a human being with feelings, and big feelings, but where do we take that? Like, you know, they must listen, don't talk, don't go out or step out of line. The schooling system, all of that is done to really dim their light. And people, I will, like, even with my cat, no, where's Nala, where is she? People are like, you know, you're a bit extra with your cat. I'm like, but she's a living thing. She's a living being with like a soul. And I think when we get to the level of people can just see this stuff and be okay with it, and also be actively subscribing, because this manosphere, these influencers, their tactics and their messaging and everything is no different to the far right. It's no different to all of the others. It's just another audience that it's playing to. And what I'm really like, whoa, is like, these are people's children. These are the children that will be impacted. Like, your whether you know, I challenge any parent, and I'm not a parent, so this is not me getting on my moral high ground, but I challenge any parent to come and tell me that you know exactly what your children are doing online, exactly what games they're playing, exactly who they're talking to, exactly the conversations they're having. Where we don't know. And this isn't because people are shit parents, by the way. We are trying to survive ourselves.
It's like a weird conversation as well, because, like, I guess as a parent, you're probably trusting that some security or some safety around things. And I don't think people realize quite how much effort there is from even just companies to take no responsibility at all. And that's the best situation. You know, in reality, a lot of these companies are essentially trying to have direct conversations with children to really maximize profit. But also, you know, we've seen out of the Epstein files disclosures recently, there's been a lot of influence by people who you wouldn't really want influencing the way the internet is structured, in order to make children more vulnerable, or making them more vulnerable as grown-ups. And it's just this like really big, almost like a really big effort just to be like, okay, well, if I can control them and get money out of them, that's good. If I can do something nastier with that control, then that's also works for me. It's like so pervasive.
Our influence is just another way of it's another media channel, isn't it, essentially? Right? It's another media channel. It's another way. But think about back in the day when we were growing up, there was essentially kind of one centralized media, wasn't it? You'd see it on the newspaper, we'd watch it on the TV. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have, now we have just so many different routes, which is why we're being bombarded. But our influence just another form of, like, if we think about what media actually is now, it's not really the newspaper, it's not really the news, really, to the new generation. It's these people that they idolize and, you know, want to be like and inspire themselves to be like. That's our media now.
But we're also realizing now that anything that used to be narrow media was all propaganda, depending on which way they were trying to swing you anyway, right? So I think this comes, like, I'm not going to co-opt indigenous wisdom or the rest of it, but what I know enough about that eldership direction around living off the land in your local community, you know, in terms of research and whatnot. And I'm like, what's really interesting at the moment is as we're seeing certain people trying to grab literally other countries' oil and land and cultures, you're like,
which is also the manosphere, may I add?
Yeah, exactly. It's a direct mirror. You're just like, fuck off. Like, leave those people who are actually living off the land in their own context without needing to fly halfway around the world to see anybody else. Like, they're good. Like, why just leave them alone? Like, we could learn a lot, I think, around, yes, we've got digital, yes, we can use it as a tool.
100%.
But I just feel like it's the whole tech bro hyper, like, this is now, like, data is the new oil is the older bullshit phrase, right? Like, yeah, for who? For who?
I remember someone saying something, because where I was before, it was a tech consultancy, etc. But I remember speaking to somebody who was in the tech field and said, don't worry if you ever feel like you don't know. He said, because you will never not know everything, because tech is moving so fast. So whether we like it, like I'm finding the simplest things, the tasks, like to book something, it's so hard because there's so many more steps. Everything's been complicated, but then you've got a generation of people that have grown up with that, and that's the norm for them, right? This is like what's it? Remember we had like phones that we could only like text like that. This is their version, but it's so advanced that they have their own language and stuff as well out there on the internet. Like kids are speaking in literally a different language.
There's something you said there, which yeah, there was a lot that you said that was really interesting. I think this point of data as a resource is actually a really interesting conversation as well. So there's something that's happened again, very involved with the Epstein files and the Epstein business links that are coming out. But essentially, there's a lot of, and this is probably where it links to the manosphere. So I don't know if Louis Theroux's documentary covered this, but Andrew Tate, that kind of crowd, were involved a lot in essentially pimping women as far as possible in ways where you're using their data or their personality or something about them. And that's where the kind of charges around come from. But there's something similar going on in big tech where you're essentially, it's fairly likely that any person who's on this call listening has had their data sold, their data possessed, their data taken from them in some way, shape, or form that has been sold to another company and that has been making money. And essentially, if that happens enough times, people can start to become identifiable at the end of it. And so we're starting to see this conversation going on in tech at the moment of, ooh, do we need to do something about this? It might have just got to a worrying point. We're seeing this data warfare like trialed in Gaza and then again becoming a big part of the offensive between United States, Israel, Iran. But I think that's a really interesting conversation as well that comes out of this is possession around your identity, basically. Because we're getting to the point where it's literally like your personhood, your face, your voice, everything is being sold and commodified. And like you guys have both been saying, it's the same people, it's benefiting the same people.
But at the same time, I'm just going to throw this in there. When you've just spoken, you're right, and it is happening. But how many women, right? And I always say this to men, and I hope it doesn't like trigger, but when men are going online and they're looking at porn, right? I always say what you're getting off on and really like enjoying watching or whatever you do, just know that there is hundreds, if not thousands of women fighting to get not their content, but their rapes or their abuse out of that you're getting. Like this is, so we've never had autonomy, like the entitlement to our bodies and our freaking souls has been unreal. So this is something that we're now seeing coming out, and it's, with the distance, because we don't know what's real and what's not, it just makes it harder. But this has been going on for a while. Like we've had to put sexual harassment, like policies and laws in place in the workplace. Like, don't tell me you don't have a problem if you had to put a whole lot policy in with that level of urgency. You've got a problem.
I think that's why it's not really surprising. So like when we first, I feel like that's why it wasn't surprising, I guess, to the manosphere coming out now. It's really good that we're talking about it. It's really good that it's been shown to people more publicly. Because this is really like the embodiment of the last 10 or 20 years of what we've all been struggling against. And it particularly impacts people who are female or who are identified as female, people who are identified as queer, people who are just less of a masculine stereotype, I guess. but also people with like trauma and disabilities and people who are racially marginalized as well. It's like the same people have been harmed. Um, and you're saying about policies, and I know that we've talked about this a lot, but it's really getting to the point where it's like, okay, what's a policy going to do? Okay, what's this piece of paper going to do? Because it just feels like it's perpetuating so much online.
But we don't have a policy problem. We have a power problem.
Yeah.
We have a power problem. It's not it's not a gap in policy. It's a gap in power. That's what we have, and that's the real like. Anybody, I could write the best policy in the world. It's a piece of paper, right? What are we actually doing to protect these populations of people? Because I don't know about you, Chloe, but for me, it's not even about that. We know what the threats are, but the thing that actually scares me the most is that if something happens, that people will just watch. That's what the worrying thing is, right? Because we watch it on social media, we watch
it. So desensitized, isn't it?
Or they'll film it. They'll film it for content, but nobody will intervene. So when we're talking about like the safety, it's not even about. And men want to bring a lot of anger. Women will be saying, and they want to bring like If I don't think there is a man that I've spoken to whose reaction hasn't been, well, if someone did that to me, I'd knock them out. I'd do this. I'd kill them. Sure, you would. But we're asking to be part of the prevention, because what we don't need is additional anger when we've just been given anger, right? Like how are you regulating yourself to be part of the prevention? Because everyone will tell me how disgusting and vile these men are, and they'll never say like, hold on, but that was you. Are you okay? And I think after because Garry, you came to the protest with me, and you saw it in real time. In that fact, like until I saw that video that Miss Anna done, I didn't even feel it deep. There was no time to really feel the intensity of what had occurred there.
No, it's worth speaking about that again. I think in the context of this, we're talking about challenging this manosphere nonsense. Being up at that. I don't know if you were at the march as well, Chloe, or not.
No, not this time.
The 1 million women rising. What was amazing, I was very, very, very grateful for Hannah inviting me up there. But I think the thing that you took away, you felt it, you was in it. But for me, walking alongside as a man was really fascinating to see that literally this, 3 centimeter thick piece of string on either side, and thousands of women together marching. That was enough safety, right? Literally, that was enough safety, right? And it just, when you sort of map that across what we're just discussing in terms of workplaces and in society and our communities, we're like, how? Like, how are we here still? I guess is the question. And I know I'm looking at myself when I say that, as like, I can't find, and trust me, I've tried. I literally, within my own work organisation, have said, I believe that we should actually have some form of violence against women and girls. If you're going to lead a team, and it includes women, you need to go through some form of training around violence against women and girls. You know what the HR woman said to me? We don't mandate any training like that within the workplace. Didn't even want to have a conversation about it. Didn't even want to have because again, that's just a distraction from making more money. That's going to take time out. We don't care about that enough. And it's just wild to me. It's just wild to me.
I think we have to be really clear with the conversation, because when we think about violence against women and children, women and girls, we think about, rightly so, that the sexual violence, the physical violence. We don't think about the emotional violence. We don't think about the financial, the economic violence. We don't think about the violence against freedom, against, we don't talk about it in its entirety. Because again, I still think this conversation is very much leaning towards like the physical, because again, it has to be what people can see. Like, do we have to just because I don't have physical bruises, do you want me to show you my war wounds? Do you know what I mean? Like, why are we asking women why do we need a dead man's files to believe thousands of women out here? Like, why do we need to at what point can we just have our dignity intact and not have to show you and tell you all of our wounds before you do something and say, actually, maybe it is my mates and maybe I am part of the problem?
That's where acknowledging men's emotions would be really helpful as well. So we've often, I think all of us have talked about it in different ways, is if men could embody themselves, could have embodied emotional experiences and feel connected to themselves and feel therefore more connected to other people and more able to be vulnerable and more safe to be vulnerable, we might actually get men acknowledging the context of emotional abuse and the context of what emotional pain looks like. it's almost got that feeling
I
of, you know, that
agree.
kind of like old British white man, like, I can't remember what his name is, but you know, that kind of archetype you see on TV where it's kind of like, you just need to pull your socks up. You just need to have a stiff upper lip and, you know, sort yourself out, basically. It's almost like we all aim towards that all the time. And maybe that's not that healthy. You know, like, I don't know if you've got people in that generation in your family, but the ones that I had were, you know, yeah, they were resistant and yeah, they were resilient and got through, but also they were kind of emotionally a bit messed up.
But I also think, do you know what? Over the last 2 years, the amount of men that I spoke to, that I am the first person, just even through that they have told me about a lot of like physical and sexual abuse, that they went through with boys. And I hold that. So I think that maybe I come from a different lens, and it's not, yeah, there's a little bit of anger because I hold that space and I take that away from them. So if I take that away and create that safe space for you, whether it's just a normal conversation, but you feel lighter, then you don't get to throw that on me and then do nothing with it. You know what I mean? Like, I think there is the spaces there, like you have to walk into them, but you don't get to just come and tell me off the cuff and then not do
Yeah.
anything. That again, it's not fair. It's not the, you can do it, but what comes next then? You can't just walk away.
But
I think
there
this
is,
is the
yeah. So sorry, Claire. I was going to, but weaving all this together for me, and again from my own experience, because I can see myself in this whole conversation, right, through being bullied as a kid, through not feeling I could ask for help, except like I do genuinely believe cause and effect. Like, what's the root cause, right? What is the root cause? Is, for me, it is men's disconnection, low self-worth, lack of community. Like, it's a very inner journey that is not prioritized by men and boys because we're told we don't need to. Because guess what? The world's going to give you what you want anyway, so don't worry about it, right? It's that whole entitlement piece combined with a lack of self-worth. And when you've got those two things, an external pull saying don't worry, and an internal that's really painful and quite challenging to feel, like it is men. That's why I do really believe it is our job. It's men's work, not just to reduce the males. It's cause and effect. I really believe if you've got billions of men doing this inner work, right, connected, feeling, understanding how things are interconnected, you're not going to fucking harm women and girls. You would not think about it. You just wouldn't. I just genuinely, unless you've got a wire cross or if some circuitry goes wrong, if you understand how the world works and you're able to feel, connect head, heart, gut, you are not going to be violent, generally.
Yeah.
I'm not saying things won't go wrong, but I genuinely believe that is the critical root cause of this.
And you can calm your nervous system down ultimately. But I think what you're and one thing I've always struggled with, like being in D&I, I was a bit of a problem child, I'm not gonna lie, because for me, I was working alongside different departments and like marketing. Okay, right, Garry, you've done your marketing course. Well done. You're asking me to fundamentally get leaders to change who they are as, like, you know what, you know this, Garry, all of us that have done this work and dismantled something, you're not the same person again. So you're giving me this task with people that are totally unwilling to ask them to fundamentally change who they are as people in a system and an organization,
Yeah.
right?
More than once, probably. Maybe like 30 times.
Exactly, right? and to be honest, that's one thing the workplace for certain people. Well, no, they told us who to be, and they told you not to deviate from that. So isn't that, again, like that whole role is a direct opposition to, and that's why it's not worked. It's not worked.
I think like asking workplaces as well, it's the sort of wrong vessel, if you like, isn't it? Because the way that we have capitalism essentially capitalism kind of needs women to be held in a certain place, especially if you're not a white woman. It needs to hold you in a lower place. And it needs to hold, I mean, the big thing, I mean, the big scam, if you like, for poor white men or for middle class white men is that the only reason you're given power over everyone else is so that even more wealthy men than you can control you. Does that make sense? Have I said that clearly enough? So like the system only works in that way so that, am I allowed to swear on this or not?
I think
we have a lot already, so go for it, Chloe.
So essentially, you being held in a position where you can have other people as being your bitch only works if some other bigger fish than you get to have you as their bitch. That's how it works.
100%.
So we're essentially like, and that's what all businesses are made on, like in capitalism. Like that's essentially how that happens. And you can try and make your business as ethical as possible. I'm not saying people don't try, but that's essentially what the system's made from. Putting into that a very different, like, actually, you need to harm reduce, you need to work collaboratively, you need to respect people. Like, it's just not the right
And we
place
need
to
to
do that work.
put it down and start again. That's the whole point, right?
Yeah, we need to move it into like a community base in some way. But I feel like that every sort of vessel, and I imagine this will be something where in some places bits of it will be done in the workplace, in some places bits of it will be done in the pub, in some places bits of it will be done in a different new type of space. Hannah, you mentioned stuff about, you know, like the of occupation of buildings that used to happen like decades ago where people had like collectives. This will be done in different ways, but we just need to take the work outside of the workplace. It's just not really the right place to have the
and that, I think, you know, between even the three of us, like, you can, like, the work that you've done with me, I've been then trying to build that for 3 years, right? But at what point is we're going to keep building to the point we tire ourselves out and we literally distress kills us, right? It's a very real possibility, and people are just not even putting their head above the parapet. And I'm like, this is a disconnect, because we're building, and there's loads of people building, right? But have a look at when you look at the manosphere, these people are doing not what they're not dissimilar to what we're trying to do. So that one dude had he's got his own university on there. He's gone and designed his own education system out there that the people are paying to go to, right?
There's Hustlers University.
Yeah,
it's a different one,
right? But ultimately, okay, the end goal is not the same as theirs in terms of the harm. But aren't we trying to do the same? They're organised. They are. We have to understand that the community is the opposition to this, but also we need to get our asses organised and stop feeling the fear. And even if it's the smallest change, so I have a friend that worked in HR and was saying, you know, I feel really bad we're doing redundancies and stuff. And I said, look, as somebody in HR, do you know what you need to do? I said, you need to do everything in your power to get those people as much money as they can, so they can walk away with some level of financial. I'm not telling you to go and burn everything out, but I'm just telling you, look at what role you're in. What can you do? And one of my old team said it to me a few days ago. You've always been about people. Oh, look, my thing is still there. You've always been about people before systems. Sorry, I'm going to try and get my confetti. I've always put people before the system, and that's why I've been a problem.
and you do get punished for that a lot. Like, it's happened I've had it in government jobs where you're seen as slowing down the system and creating friction within the system. And this is where things like AI become a bit of a problem, because mathematical systems essentially work that, like, as soon as something's like slowing something down, the system will try and erase it completely. And it will do that before kind of thinking, oh, maybe that's just humans being humans.
There's no space for human error.
It's even just not even human error. It's just like, do you know what? Let people have their coffee break, because having their coffee break means that they have conversations and they work better as a team.
They don't want
any manager who's been a manager for a long time will say you have to give some people like room to be human. That's like, I just kind of feel like the manosphere is like this really intense version of all the shitty workplace drama that you could possibly have, and all the shitty stuff in business. It's condensed down, and then like you get some muscular guy on being like, I'm going to tell you how shit you are. Like, it's just like I feel for men and boys that's you're in that situation where that feels validating to you. I can completely understand where you'd get to that point, but it's really sad that we've gotten to that point.
But there was all of these men, like, when you looked at it, they all grew up with either in abusive households or with absent fathers, and this is then the gap that was then closed. Because I don't know if you noticed, but if this was the case when women were single mothers, for example, but when women are single mothers, they go to groups, they build community in one way, shape or form, right? Men don't do that. Men will just isolate. It's isolation, and it's all to keep men angry. They need men angry because they need men angry that are going to be furious to peddle these narratives. And I actually do feel for those men. I feel for those men that just project these unhealed anger, because ultimately they were still children at one point, and you can clearly see the route that it's gone down. And I can't have anger towards somebody that was harmed as a child. Like when I look at their inner child, I can't do that, but I can understand it.
Do you know something though? I think that's why you're always empathetic, Hannah. But I think at the end of the day, as well, like when I watched that Louis Theroux thing, what's so fascinating for me, one of my big takeaways was, Jesus, they're pointing in the same direction in some ways. They're looking at the Rothschilds. They're looking at outside of capitalism, outside of patriarchy, beyond it. Like they are looking there. They're seeing, they're sensing something, but then underneath it, they're reinforcing all of the same bloody behaviours that the patriarchy and misogyny and the manosphere represent. So there's this really,
why are they doing that?
Look, it makes them more money and it makes them feel powerful and they're low self-worth.
Because there is almost like an awakening where people are seeing it. So they need to grab those people and take them in the direction. Because imagine if people actually saw this system for what it was. Imagine all of these angry young men actually saw the system and wanted to break out of the matrix, but didn't do it in that way. That's a really powerful power, because these are all these angry people, right? They're trained to be angry. What if they then go against the system? No, but it's easier to go against women. It's just a redirection, right?
A change of society. You'd have a revolution if those men took out their anger on systems that are harming them.
Same as the far right.
I think that's what is very scary to people who hold power, is actually if those men stopped projecting towards, or those boys in some cases, stopped projecting towards other people and they projected it upwards, you wouldn't need all this like Occupy Wall Street movement. You wouldn't need any movements that have come after that. You just completely get rid of the ruling class. Like that's terrifying.
You're so close. Same as far right. You're so close. You're so close, but you just went the wrong direction.
Almost touching the point.
Really there. Right, we are struggling with the cost of living. Our bills are going up. Our NHS is shit. But again, you just need to go and have a look at who you should really be angry at. Because we need, I've always said it, I've said it to both of you, we need that anger. We need that, because I don't have that like brute angry strength. We need that. Because
we also need people who are stronger than us. So I don't think it's, you know, I have a bad back. I could do with young men doing like the kicking down bins situation. I can't build barricades. It's not going to be done by me.
No, like genuine, like I'm just grateful. Like I can't get things from high shelves.
You'll be sat, we could be sat there looking pretty at the back.
No, I'm useful. I'm not one of them. Like, but that I just know where my strengths are, and my strengths are not in lifting shit and grabbing things from high place and taking the bins out. I'll be honest, it's a blue job.
I think that's what's kind of, in a way, well, terrifying, disappointing, saddening, but also like really exciting about this. It's like where we recognize that young men, I mean, it's potentially like largely young men, but not just young men, where they're being captured by, whether it be the far right, the manosphere, like all of these different ideologies, which is very channeled online anyway. Really, if they just took that power, they'd be like invincible and unstoppable. If they allowed themselves to feel their emotions, they would be unstoppable. There is enough resources in the world that we can all eat and not be stressed and not have scarcity and not have poo in our water. I don't know what else is happening. Like not have like rise to like £10 to, like £10 to just like get around the corner. All of those problems could be negotiated with young men taking that anger out in a like strategic way, basically.
Yeah. There's loads of work to do, but I also think like we almost, like when we talk about the system, we stop it being so. I hope you don't mind me sharing, but me and Garry have been doing some work like around his kind of like decolonizing, like unpatriarchy and work. But I will categorically like tell me, well, Garry, like by doing this work, Garry, you're a better husband. Like you're a better husband.
I wouldn't say that.
But you know, like you are.
The reality is, look, let's be honest. We wouldn't have been sitting here having this conversation 5 years ago. I wouldn't have been able to. I would have felt uncomfortable. I would have felt one of my biggest challenges, interestingly, was deferring in a space with other women. So much so, I had Trina Casey saying to me, "You need to speak up. It's great you're here, but you're not saying anything. Like you're not here." Yes, there's a difference between decentering yourself and contributing fully, and that's been a big learning as well, Hannah. Honestly, the last couple of years, those two things, they're not mutually exclusive, but they're different. And I thought that decentering myself was the right thing to do. And it's like, no, you've got to be in the arena as well. And these are the sorts of things that I have learned over the last few years, which, yes, do make me a better husband to Jackie. Without that, and this shouldn't be revolutionary, but I've got to say it. Like, do not underestimate the conditioning, like the conditioning for men, and the whole, like, don't be a sissy, be a man, like, even from wives and partners, like, be the man up. Like, these are really insidious, silly little bits of language that reinforce this whole stupid system. Like, but what it takes is just curiosity. Like, and I think men. Let me share a story. There's a guy I know that works in the chemical industry. Paid more than me, exceptionally well paid, great salary, great job. Again, everything you want on the externally, right? Kids in private school. The guy's got self-worth on the floor, maybe through the ground. Literally. And that's one example. You magnify that by tens of millions of men who are in powerful positions, making good money, could make very different decisions, and they're not, because they're wrapped up in the idea of, I will only be good if I am X, Y, Z, fill in the blank.
Mm-hmm.
So there's sort of like two things here. There's one which is like, I see that, how do you create the conditions to try and capture that let's call it younger energy of anger, and combine that with sort of like this other generation of men doing the inner work, which I believe we should be doing. Like, there is like a sort of yes and in this, but a lot of it is men. Like, it shouldn't be women doing the work. You can hold the space, but you shouldn't have to do the work.
Can I ask a question? Or
you can ask a billion questions. Sorry, you get me all passionate now.
So can I ask, even just in the time that we've been like doing the work together and stuff, what were the key moments where you felt a shift? What was the situation? Where were you? What was it? And what shifted in you, like in your, I guess, soul, that made you go, fuck, like, what the fuck, like that opened your eyes to seeing? Because I'm assuming it wasn't a textbook.
No. So there's two things, right? I've done that intro to decolonial sustainability course in 2024
mm-hmm.
with the other decolonial team. And then obviously we've done our work the last 12, 18 months. It's experiential, right? That's the point. It's not about reading a book. It's the experience of being in dialogue and joining dots and going, oh, fuck. So for me, for example,
what was a moment that
there's been loads of moments. But in the rawest, one of the ones for me on this course that I was on a couple of years ago was understanding development aggression, which was basically, I'm sitting there in a course with a load of other people. Funny enough, the only man out of 45 people out of interest on a decolonial course. And I literally at a felt level sat there going, fuck. I can no longer say that I am an indirect link to the harm being caused in another part of the world. My life is a direct link, because of what I buy, stuff I put in my body, the life that I lead. That was one of the biggest ones, was like an in the body gut punch of like, fuck, I've been telling myself I'm indirectly linked to this stuff, but no, I'm now directly. And that brings a very visceral in body reaction, shame, guilt initially. And that's another thing I'd mentioned, Hannah, and that's part of the stuff you've helped me with. We've got to understand that if any men, like for men to do this work, they need the space, they need to be able to feel, etc. But guilt and shame is going to come in spades. And those are not emotions that we as men are told are okay to have. So like there's a lot wrapped up in that emotional piece. And I think they're two of my big ones, basically. It was that development, aggression, realization of my own life, and guilt, navigating guilt and shame quicker.
Can I ask you the question then?
Oh no, it's interrogate the guy. Go, get me, Chloe.
So as a man, you felt guilt and shame.
Yeah.
Whether that was like to do with your masculinity or not, but it was kind of part of this bigger piece of work.
Yeah.
Did the sky fall down afterwards?
100%
Did the world blow
not.
up? I guess like where I'm coming from this is do you feel like that was still worth going through and that helped going through it, even though it was presumably a bit shit, or at least a bit shit?
100. I'm not afraid to say that I have had many moments, like massive, like sheds of cheer, like complete, like breakdown of tears on multiple occasions the last 5 years, including on one occasion with my good friend Hannah. So it's, but no, the reality is I feel that the way I describe this, Chloe, and it's quite fun. Unless you've done this work, right, it doesn't make sense. But at a bodily level, like on the outside, nothing has changed in the last 10 years. Really. Same job, same wife, live in the same similar area. Like the world's changed a lot geopolitically, and of course, but my ecosystem, the people I spend my time with, that's there or thereabouts the last decade, right? Give or take a few things. Internally, 100x change. That's not exaggeration. Understanding, sensing, intuition, like the inner world. And this is why I keep saying this is such a critical part for us men to do the work, because we don't understand that we're operating at version 1.0, to use technological reference. And we've got every opportunity to be operating at 100, version 100. We've got to do the work. We've got to go through the pain of it. We've got to experience the freedom of it. And that's how I'd answer the final. I feel freer now, and Hannah's heard this many times. If I get taken out today, if I die today, I'm good with it. I really mean that. I'm totally good with it. I've got no fear of death. And that to me is like the ultimate sort of like, yeah, cool. Like, and that's what I want for other men, because the more of us men that feel that, the less risk there are to women, girls, and kids. I really believe that.
And I think that's really interesting that you said that, because the reason I asked us when it shifted is because I really want, because this is what has been beautiful about our friendship and the work that we've been doing, Garry, is because you'll tell me that, and we hold space for it. But if I ask men, and I think they'd probably have a similar like fear of what you had to sit with, etc. So when I realized what it triggered for me is when I remembered I didn't actually remember a lot of my childhood. It had been blocked out. So when we talk about men, you know, and this is why I like, so my biggest thing has been actually releasing the shame and the guilt that was never mine to sit with. That was never mine. But so for all this time that men are not doing the work and they're scared to feel that shame and that guilt, just please know that we carry it. We carry it every day. We carry it not even as adults, but from children, and to the point where we carry it so much that our brains block out our childhood, right? We only remember certain things, and so my biggest journey was trying to remember shit, and then realizing that shit, I blocked that stuff out, but that actually happened. So for me, it's been about releasing the shame, releasing the guilt, but also knowing that to even speak about these things and do this is a privilege. Now, if I went, I'm hypothetically speaking here, but I am a Muslim brown woman. So if I decided to say I went through childhood SA from a family member or whatever else, a man in the community, versus if Chloe, as I'm just going to use your whiteness for now, what does that do then to my nephews? What does that do to the young boys in my family? What were already being demonized by the media and being cast? It doesn't even allow people like me to speak if they needed to speak. So we're still asking people to hold it because it feeds into a narrative that actually, you know, if I said I was harmed by a black man, for example, I couldn't, I'm not saying that I was, by the way, but should that happen versus a white man? If I say it's a white man, it's cool. So again, even being able to, certain like women, they can't even say it out loud, because again, we're all trying to stop harm happening, but by us speaking our truth, we then put ourselves, because of the system, into a place where it could cause harm. And this is what men need to figure out, like, because, you know, we've got in our feelings quite a lot, but just please know that we as women carry the same shame and guilt, but it wasn't ours to carry. And actually some of it isn't men's to carry either, but we've had to fix up and we've had to address it. So I don't blame anything on anyone that happened in childhood or anything like that, but we do have a responsibility now, and men have a responsibility to at least meet us halfway.
That's where a lot of the passionate, loving, but also kind of, you know, we need you to, I mean, you know, I was almost going to use the phrase man up, but it's almost like the reason that a lot of women are asking men to become more embodied and to sort of step into safe masculinity is essentially because women are really burnt out now.
We're tired.
A lot of communities are at the point where we can't carry anymore. We've kind of come through the pandemic. It's really very stressful. We know men are really stressed, but it's almost at that I mean, it's past its breaking point, really, but it's escalating so much that I think, there's always been evidence that even in women's movements where it looks like it's all about women, well, actually, a lot of the time it's been supported by men, or women have been there because they're asking for things that would benefit men. I think there is kind of like that, we do want you to come along as humans.
But
It just is going to be very uncomfortable, and it is going to
I
feel a bit
don't think
shit.
it does have to be uncomfortable. I don't think it has to be uncomfortable. I actually don't think
It's also just like acknowledging that, you might feel a bit shit, but it'll, it feels like a bit like, when you go through therapy and you have this whole anxiety of like, oh my goodness, what am I going to be like? What if I don't have these things to stress about? Essentially, once you go through the other side, you're like, oh my God, I'm so glad that I did that.
But I think
Like, I
maybe
feel like there's a bit in the moment where it might feel shit. I don't know. I'm not a bloke.
But I mean, Garry can probably tell us better, but I can't speak to like the stuff that you did before. But for me, we like the work that we've been doing. It's just understanding the system. So it's not there to sit. The guilt isn't like we can't blame any of us for functioning in a system that we know is so ingrained. Even when we talk about being burnt out, the working day and the way society is built is around a 24-hour hormonal clock, which is a man's clock. We operate monthly. So we are tired because we're not even operating in the way that our bodies should operate. So like this is why we're so tired. So I don't think it has to actually be that uncomfortable, because I just need people to stop getting in their fields, understand how the system works. And just because we then have a documentary where it shows the most violent form of it, it means that people... I have worked in organizations, and I'm so close to saying names, but I won't, where the CEO of that organization has made me so uncomfortable and sexualized me. So don't think that you are any different, right? They're not any different. We've seen what men do in the workplace. Get a drink down them, jumping on the bed at CEOs jumping on the bed and all sorts of, like someone's hotel room, breaking beds, all sorts. Don't act like you're not part of it just because you can hide it a bit better. It's still in the workplace. These men exist everywhere, is my point.
That's like association and the kind of, I don't have to feel like I'm part of the problem, then I don't have to feel anything as well.
But we do it as well. And what I'm saying is that when we look at social media, and like I've got posts with thousands of like disgusting comments, how do I know one of them ain't my doctor? How do I know one of them isn't going to be my lawyer that I need? How do I know one of them is not going to be prescribing me meds? Do you know what I mean? Like we almost think that people on social media, because they're keyboard warriors, that we stop seeing them as real people that sit in companies. When we're talking about this stuff in organizations, it's no different to talking about it in community, because let's not act like you become a different person and you morph into a whole different human being when you walk into the world. No, you don't. You just hide it better.
This is really important point as well. When you think, I've heard you say it, Hannah, a lot of times, and the first time you said it, to be honest, it landed. But the more I hear it, the more I'm like, fuck. Which is, us blokes don't have to worry. We don't think twice about, is that woman a risk to us walking down the street? You women are like, you've got no idea. You've got no idea at any point in time which man may or may not be a risk, right? And I'm not trying to like overplay that, but the reality is, like, we just don't have that same level of...
You can overplay it if you want. Like, it's literally
consent,
like a
do you know what I mean? Consent. Yeah.
constant.
We never have it, right?
Matrix process that you're going through all the time.
Even
just to go down the street.
I don't get the train to London anymore. So like, it became a bit of a running joke because we were all black and brown,
which is insane.
And they say, what racism did you get today? Like, I couldn't go a day. It's so not like, we've normalized it as well, right? We have normalized the fact, and I always say it to like my nieces and stuff, like, you don't need to tell me. If a boy made you feel uncomfortable, that's all I need to know. You don't need to explain why they should make you feel uncomfortable. You don't need to explain what you might not have articulated. Just no, absolutely nobody has the right to make you feel uncomfortable.
See, now an idea's popped where it's like, I imagine a space where we find some men that are willing to do the work. They're like, okay, yeah, I've got daughters, granddaughters, nieces, friends I care about who are women, but I don't know I don't get to understand their experience. I don't really know what's going on. Yes, I've researched it, but you have this space where, like Chloe, Hannah, You know, you're able to come in for 30 minutes and say, look, this is my experience as a woman today. Did you have any idea? No.
But if we're coming in, they need to show up, and that is
I'm not disputing that. I'm just saying the idea. I'm just saying I'm just trying to ideate, because at the moment, like I say, I've tried it inside an organisation. Fully support your point, Chloe. They just don't care. Most organisations just don't give a shit. That's the bottom line. So actually, this has got to be a bottom-up community intervention somehow.
And I think what men need to also realise is, because they think that they are the perfect husband, brother, whatever, I can assure you, maybe not every woman, but if you speak to 5 women in your network that you think you have a really close relationship with, be it your family, I can guarantee you that they have not come and told you about something that's what happened because you are not a safe enough place for them. I can guarantee you that. And it's not that they don't trust, but they don't trust that you're not going to bring more anger, and what actually they need is a soft place to land and for people to be part of a solution. But I can assure you, I challenge every single man watch this. Please go and speak to 5 women you know, and I can guarantee you that something has happened and they don't feel safe enough. Because that is the worst thing, is that when something happens, there isn't even men that are safe enough for us to go to tell that we could trust, that will give us what we need, not what their anger need, what their anger and their ego tells them to do. Would you agree?
And that's if they've got a positive response to believing you. I think that would be because I think, you know, we are kind of, all of us, like women as well, are kind of trained to disbelieve people and to not, or to like ask, you know, oh, well, are you sure it's not this? Are you sure it's not that? Like really minimize people.
For a reason why. I had a friend that went through, you know, was harmed, and women also said to me, what was she wearing?
Yeah. And I think sometimes just admitting that like people can be nice in one context and they can be really good in one context. I think that's something I see a lot in political spaces as well, is, do you know what? A guy can be really good at something, or he can be a really good author or a really good film producer, and he can still have harmed somebody.
Mm-hmm. But I also think, you know what?
Accepting that is quite a big step.
But I think it's so ingrained, isn't it? Because you know, if I've had harm happen to me, the first thing I go is, what did I do to maybe cause that? You know, we ask ourselves.
And sometimes men don't realise how much they've harmed people. So they might kind of say, well, it's not really that, you know, oh, it's not really that bad. Or in that situation, like, can she really decline her consent? And, you know, that's a separate piece that we need to do probably on a wider level. But we've kind of, it felt like we kind of gained some, it almost felt like we advanced forward a little bit and then slipped backwards in the last few years, I think.
It's because
of consenting.
Isolation. It's because people are not connected. There's not as much human connection as we used to. And I think that is a huge issue, because I was talking to somebody and they were saying about like, you know, and I hear it a lot, like there was other context around, but you know, like if a man goes and says, oh, you're a beautiful woman, right? I said, context really matters though. I said, because first and foremost, if I've just met you on the street and the first thing you need to say to me is that, oh, you're really beautiful, you don't need to say that, right?
That's kind of intimidating as well. I don't think the men who do it realise.
Yeah, and we don't want that.
Please
right?
Don't do that. That's
but if you get to
terrifying.
Right, so Gary, if you say to me like, Hannah, do you know what, you're a really beautiful soul, I'll take that. I'm not be like, oh, Gary, it's context, right? Because you don't need to be complimented, like it might, but at the same time, when I was married and I was at my wedding, loads of men told me I look beautiful and I took it. I didn't think I knew I did. I look like a princess. Do you know what I mean? So context matters here, but this whole blanket, we can't even talk to a woman anymore. Women don't want you to come and just comment on their appearance when they know they're not safe. They want you to be a safe place and actually be like, hey, you've got a really good mind there. Or actually, do you know what? I understand the threat that you're under. So I'm going to actually not do that. The amount of young men that have told me that they think it's disgraceful that they would have to cross a road to make a woman feel safe, and they're not doing it because it's extra steps from like the takeaway. Genuinely, young boys, it's conversations that I've had.
This is where the piece about just being very honest about experiences when it went well or didn't go well, or men sort of telling other men what their actions have been or what they tried to do, whether or not that was helpful. Like that modeling of the behavior is actually really useful, because there are men who are doing these things and there are men who are trying to change their behavior. I mean, there has been for many years, like men who will try and make you feel physically safer on the street as a woman or a girl. And we don't see that being modeled as much, but we kind of need that sort of like messy, imperfect modeling of going towards healthy masculinity. And actually, because of how brave that is, I would say that's actually a really like quote unquote manly thing to do. It's like stepping into that I'm prepared to fuck up, I'm prepared to make mistakes. And actually, if we really want to advertise it to men, do you know what? It makes you more attractive to women.
It genuinely does.
So I'm just being very honest. A lot of women do find that attractive.
Emotional safety is my love language, and she's but no, you're right, Chloe. But I think when you look at so I know some really good men, right, that have either done the work or what. There's always been a woman taking them on that journey, and what I want to see now is them men come together like the Avengers and be like, okay, how are we going to take? Because we are fucking tired. Like, girlfriend over here wants a holiday and a nap. That is it. Like, so men, the good men out there, I'm saying is like, I will bring you together. I'll hold the container, but at some point you're going to have to take it and run with it, because we know you can take it and run with it because you do it in every other facet of your life. You can write a plan on a cigarette box and have a drink at the pub, play some golf, and guess what? Hey ho, you've done it. You've got what you wanted. 14-year-olds making £3,000 a year from like tech. Like, what are we?
We need like the anti-hustlers.
We'll take you, but you need to lean in. Like, this is I'm pissed today, so like it's here. Take it, lean into it. But then at some point, right? It's not too bad feeling your feelings. I was not one to feel my feelings, I'll be honest, but it's all right, you know, and it can be quite fun. I don't get
freeing again. It's freeing to, there's my little anecdote, my little strap line for today. It's freeing to feel, because it is.
That needs to go on like a notebook.
It is though, but it's true. There's freedom in feeling. There truly is. Certainly my experience anyway. Yes, it's not always comfortable, but it's not the point. The point is you go through feelings to grow. That's it. Like, I don't believe you can grow if you're not actually feeling.
But also, like, I'm sure you will, like, men go to the gym to the point where like they'll rip their muscles and shit. I'm pretty sure that's uncomfortable too, you know. I'm pretty sure having to walk like this because your arms are so big and they don't like actually fit. I'm pretty sure that's uncomfortable too. And I let my guns. My proudest. I'm starting to lift now. It's the only thing that man can't do.
Maybe the answer is just that we need merch and we potentially need to start selling supplements, and then it'll go. I mean, this is what kind of makes me laugh a bit about. I mean, there's like Joe Rogan podcasts, and like that's kind of on the cusp of the manosphere, but maybe he's not into it properly. There's so much merch being sold to men. There's so much advertising for stuff which is questionable whether or not it works or has a difference on you. There's quite a lot being rammed down men's and boys' throats in like the manosphere. Obviously, I didn't see it, so I don't know which bits they covered. But there's so much advertising, and there's so much like getting men in a vulnerable state, degrading them, and then like taking the money out, being like, okay, now you feel shit about yourselves and you don't feel as much of a man as everybody else. Buy my £80 a month supplements.
Do you
like
think
there's a lot of that goes on?
Do you think that they don't do that to women as well?
Yeah, of course they do.
Do you know what I mean? Like, the impacts of that then mean women are very, and we've moved into a world where like I keep hearing online dating stories. Like, I think it's the most bizarre concept to meet somebody and then not know anything about them and then try and make small talk. Like, making small talk is really weird. Like, I think it's really odd. But we're not even meeting people. Like, we're meeting people with specific purposes in place, whether that be work, meeting, and we're not actually getting to know people just how we used to, where then we can actually engage in normal conversation, because our basis of what we're talking about is not based on the fact that you're a misogynistic pig or you're a man and I'm a woman or you're white, I'm brown. That's not what we're basing our conversation. We're basing our conversation on the fact that, like, you know, do you like
humans in the same place?
Yeah, we all really like my niece says it. She's like, my auntie's a really lovely person. She will never judge you unless you don't like cheese. Then she'll judge you. That's the rule that I have with her.
Important things.
Right, you can tell me anything. Just don't tell me to join the police, the military, you're a Tory, a reformer, or you don't like cheese. That's it, game over. But we don't have conversations, right, that are just normal, that allow us to engage and understand one another and understand experiences.
I've just created a new formula, putting into my healthy masculine.
There we go.
Connection over transaction equals possibility.
See, this is what you're good at.
Yeah.
So poor Gary was like, right, okay, I think we're going to learn. Let's go. I'm like, come on, Gary, come into my world. Like, Gary, he didn't put his seatbelt on quick enough. I was like, come on, mate. But again, understanding, like you said, Chloe, it's bringing all the mess and understand, like, the first thing we all have to do is remove the shame and the guilt and the fear from ourselves. And you're right, Gary, it is freeing. It is freeing. But what that also allows us to do is become a protective barrier to the system that hurts us. Because at the moment, the lone soldiers are standing out there being literally choked by this system because we're not just creating a protect. I don't care if you don't know what to do. I'll help you with that. Like, genuinely, I don't care. But just come and be part of this protective shield. That's it.
I think there's something that we've talked about a lot in lots of contexts as well, is you don't need to be perfect when you come and like side with people and stand up for people. You don't need to be perfect. It doesn't need to all be, you know, that's something that's very like system centric and like very much oppressive system centric, is this idea you always need to be perfect. You don't need to be perfect. You're gonna fuck it up, it's fine. I fuck stuff up, it's fine. Well, not, do you know what I mean? Like you address it as you go along. But this freeing element as well is almost like it removes that sense of permanent anxiety over status, this permanent anxiety over, but what if another man is more impressive than me? But what if I'm not the biggest person in my workplace? But what if I don't present the perfect way? There's so much anxiety going around in people's heads all the time. And to make it about men in the manosphere, I imagine that there's a lot of this status anxiety going on. That's what people prey on a lot of the time.
Massively.
If you can just reduce some of that a little bit, you are more comfortable and confident in yourself. You start showing up as who you actually are, which in itself is more attractive and magnetic, even like not really romantically or sexually necessarily. It's just more attractive to other people as humans. But you also create the room to like know how to respond to people and know what to say in awkward positions or awkward situations.
But sometimes
spontaneity.
But sometimes you just need to. I don't think men realise the impact that just their presence has, that or can have. It can completely change the room if somebody comes with aggression, but also it can be really grounding in a really calm space if a man. And that is what we need to look at. Like, what is healthy? Like running around, or you know, at the gym 24/7, looking at yourself in the mirror. So that's not healthy. Like, that's not healthy. If I had to put that into medical terms and write your prescription, do you know what I mean? Like, that's not healthy. Women essentially want.
It sounds stressful.
It's chaos. It's fucking chaos. And the only reason I know is because I was it. I operate. I don't. When I feel calmness, I'm like, what the? Like you two earlier, I was like, this. I'm going to resist this. You know, like. I don't. Yeah, like literally. I'll resist but a battle, probably not. Do you know what I mean? Because again, I'm used to chaos.
Kind of jumping off that as well, like something we were talking about earlier, and this is kind of where the kind of anger came into let's do a live stream, is that Gary, we were talking about your purpose essentially as our token white guy, because sometimes men find it more calming or present in a different way when they're actually talking to another man. So I think there's often this focus on, or there's this idea that white men are not valuable in leftist spaces, for example, or white men are not valuable in liberatory spaces. And it's like, no. We see the value in you. You are very useful in lots of different ways, not just getting things off the top shelf. Like that, there is very much space for you, but it's just it does come with this awkward kind of like, okay, I might need to accept that like sometimes, you know, women or people who are not white are oppressed on the basis, and I get a slightly better deal, but I'm not actually getting the best deal because like the rich guys are at the top and they're also screwing me over.
And the truth of the matter is, like, I wouldn't be here in a sane mindset if it wasn't for you, Gary. Right? So you have been more than valuable, right? You allowed me to even my mind to go to a place where what a healthy masculine would look like as a dad, as a brother, as a, you know, all of these things. I started
on a
Monday, you know, like not listening, you know, all of that. But and that's really important, because again, and it's your presence, just to know, again, like, these men can essentially, sometimes we just need you to be a safety net. That's it. We just need you to be a safety net. Like, got you. Don't worry. Like, do what you need to do. But I get it, because I think it'd be really good. I know we're running out of time, but just for you to, Garry, to know what that fire is, I guess. What was that moment that made you just, not the moment, but I'll tell you mine. So for me, the biggest thing that has come from this, and I said it and, you know, had a few tears, but I promised that I will ensure that my life is dedicated to ensuring another woman doesn't have to go through what I did. I'll be fucking damned if another woman or another child, and that's always been why I fight so hard, because it's very real. These are either people in my life, and I will be damned, I will dedicate my life to making sure that if a woman needs to leave a situation, she can fucking leave. So I just wanted to know, because that, again, it comes from my experience, the women that I'm speaking to, but what is it for you, Garry, from the other side? Because again, we're the ones that are harmed by it, so it's a lot easier for us to project the anger and feel that and move into that space. What is it for you?
The thing is, it's funny, what I've jotted down here is things around the shared humanity across men and women, i.e., we all feel guilt, shame, connection, safety, harm. Of course, men not as harmed, as, you know, in the context of this conversation. But I'm just really feeling into, like, how can I, as a man, invite that shared humanity as, like, that feels to me like an aperture, a way to try and get more people into this conversation, to feel into this conversation, is to say, this is not about saying you're the problem. It's about saying we as men have more work to do to solve this problem. That's different. They're two completely different things. And they're the sorts of things I'm holding at the moment. Is just around, I've really enjoyed the conversation, to be honest, because it's very activating, Hannah, for me, this. Because I feel lonely, right? I've been the only person speaking up within a 5 billion turnover company about Gaza for 3 years, and had no person acknowledge the fact I want to talk about it before trying to center the harm that's being caused. Mm-hmm. The fact one of their employees, feels I want the space to talk about it. I didn't have a soft landing within the business. You know, so it's very live for me around this. Like I say, it's about space, it's about safety, but it's more about, like, how do we invite more men through the lens of shared humanity to do the work? And that's my commitment to
wild that we have to ask, like just say that sentence again. Ask you to commit to shared humanity, like,
yeah.
Everyone should sit with the fact that is the ask right now, dear men. Right, we are literally asking you to see our humanity. Like, how is that? How have we got there? Because I guarantee you, all the men watching this, right, if you don't do something now, your daughters will be asking, and you will be fuming, and you'll have to explain why you saw it and you didn't do anything to your daughters. Because I guarantee you, looking at the stats, as much as this breaks my heart, and this is why I give zero fucks and I will say what I need to say, is because I need to be able to look at your daughter in the eyes, even if you can't, and say that I didn't even know your daughter, but I fought for your daughter. But will you be able to do that for your daughter, for your niece, for your granddaughter? And if you can, hand on your heart, and say yes, then cool, then come into the space with us because we need you. If you can't, then you've got work to do, and also come into the space because we also need you.
Chloe, what's your final reflections?
I'm finding it hard to get like one sentence or like condense it down. I think this was a really useful conversation for me because I've been doing a project that brings in lots of different threads, but kind of talks about power dynamics and how systems work and how sort of government systems and AI systems sort of like self-resolve across, and essentially how that can either be activating for us or sedating for us. And that was probably the easiest way to put it. And I think that we're in this really interesting moment at the current time where, you know, we could talk about like the fire horse year before, right? This interesting moment where lots of things are active and there's lots of change happening in the world and there's lots of individual change in people's lives, and things can go one of two ways. And I guess I'm going to choose to be hopeful about where things go, because I would like it to be that, okay, once we have the manosphere or the incel conversation in the discourse, that men are a bit more able to talk about what they've been exposed to online, what weird stuff they've seen. What stuff did you get down some weird thread in 2020 where you completely believed that you were a high value Sigma male for a couple of weeks, and then you realized that maybe there was something else going on? Like, I'd like men to be able to do a bit more talking around that. I'm going to choose to be hopeful.
I think I'm hopeful too. I am hopeful.
And then I'll go back to insulting men on my very, very watched by the alt-right blog.
Two things can be true at the same time, right? And like men, I can assure you, I'm not a horrible person. I will be your biggest supporter and your biggest fan, but I also equally hold the rage, because I need you to we need them to step into it, right? We need them to step in. It's really, really important. And we are hopeful, genuinely.
It's relevant probably to say as well that, and Hannah, I hope you don't mind me saying, but like we have both, so because Hannah's a brown Muslim woman and because I'm a white Jewish woman, we've done some shared work before, and we've both found that we've been sexualized and fetishized by predominantly, but not exclusively, white men online. So it has been interesting to kind of have some degree of interaction with men who've picked up a lot of the worst bits of the manosphere, essentially, like the worst kind of degrading of women or the insulting of women online and the sort of more dangerous beliefs. So we are coming from a place where we're like, no, we want you to be better. We know that there's like a place where you can find this shared humanity and this compassion. But that's why we brought in Garry, yourself as a token white man, to be coming from the place of, okay, well, what's it actually like to grow up in that experience and have it all the time, because we literally have no idea. We haven't lived that life, you know.
And I'm just going to say, for the men that don't step into this space, I'm just going to say, I will make it my life purpose to create a national sexualized men day, and watch how we wolf whistle you and make you feel really uncomfortable and look at your legs and try and take pictures of you in your shorts under this. We'll do it. That's the only way you're going to learn. Like, we'll give you
be so petty. We can be so petty.
Right, because we've learned how to maximize our time, right? So we will have, and if that's like genuinely, like, it shouldn't have to happen to you, but if we have to like come into your inbox and tell you like how nice, like what the viralness that we get.
Need to spend more time on arms. Do you even lift, bro?
Right.
You know, we say it as banter, but it's coming from, I guess, like the root point of it is it's coming from a place of compassion and wanting to see men step into their best selves. It's just, there's only so much we can do as women.
And the reason I'm pissed is because I know they can do better. Right? At this point, I'm like, lazy. Like, if I didn't have faith in men, I genuinely would have I'd be a whole lot meaner. But I genuinely have faith, and you can, like, I do feel that they can do better. Like, there is hope. And if we have to. But if we can have hope after being harmed so much by it, men can step into it, because we haven't lost hope in you. So the fact that you've lost hope in yourselves is really quite sad.
And do you know something? I'm good. Isn't it interesting that we could have had this conversation in 3 months' time, 6 months' time, whatever, but we have been positively activated today through a whole host of different intersecting reasons. And it's sort of I feel like it's accelerated something that was going to happen anyway.
Yeah.
Which is really, really cool. So I want to take that from a moment of like co-creation. Like, this is whatever comes out of this conversation of 90 minutes. We're all going to take different things away into our sleep, into the next week, into the next days, and it will form something. Something tangible will form. Certainly will for me.
It has to. And if all else fails, what we'll do is we'll charge people like £30 to just shout hurl abuse at you, Garry. Like,
I'm up for it. As long as it's all
that seems to work well. And note how we came together and had a conversation and didn't call all men hoes, or, you know, like notice how we did that. How we didn't take.
We can do that next time. I'm not averse to doing
that. In a few hours' time.
For a small fee. At least you went follicle
special edition.
Right. Funny. But we just have to keep having the conversation and, you know, encourage people to join us. And if anybody's watching it back, comment, like, get in touch. Like, but genuinely, this is coming from a place of ranting, but we are hopeful, right?
Yeah.
The baseline is set. The new baseline is set, and it's higher.
I was just going to say that, men, trust me, like, just step into it, because the bar is hella low. Like, it's underground at this point. So to even just step into it, like, you just need to maybe not like abuse us in the first 3 minutes, and you're already like setting the bar high. So step into the space.
Have a good evening, everyone.
See you later.